Hello everyone, Tom here. Welcome. Good evening or morning, afternoon. I don't know where everyone is. I'm actually quite interested to know where people are watching from today. Just randomly looking through my analytics earlier, and I had most people from the US, some people from Australia, South Africa, quite a lot of people around there. So yeah, tell me where you're looking from. Looking from, watching from. um, I'm ready for all the questions. I'm ready for the questions. It's going to be, what's the best limitless team? Who's the best two times if I'm using the three times? And that's pretty much it for the next hour. um, have we got? Can we get a quick mic check just to make sure everyone can hear me? I guess. Oh, people can hear me because people are shouting already. Got someone from Madrid, Toronto. Cool. Never been to Canada. Not very nice to go there. Paris. Nice. Yeah, here comes the questions. Grant, straight in there. Limitless team. As anyone who's been paying attention to what I've been doing over the season would probably already know, I've used up all my chips. So I haven't, I'll be completely honest, I haven't put a lot of thought into limitless teams. I think the limitless team kind of picks itself in a way. I think personally, if I'm going to go limitless, I would have the Red Bull and Mercedes as my constructor. I've seen quite a few people looking at the Ferraris, particularly after the practice session where they finished P1, P2. But I don't think the Ferrari's looking that great. They weren't looking that great on the longer runs, like on the hard tyre earlier on in the session. I haven't really looked at the actual times for the long runs and everything yet. I haven't seen anything on Twitter as yet. But yeah, I think the Ferraris aren't going to be as competitive in my opinion compared to the Red Bulls and the Mercedes. So if I was on Limitless, I think my initial thoughts would be Red Bull, Mercedes, my constructors. Max Verstappen, obviously, as the two times on the driver slot. I'd double up or effectively triple up on the Mercedes. So I'd have George and Lewis on there. And I would personally probably avoid Perez, although again he's kind of snuck back in there. He looked kind of quite close to Max Verstappen in that practice session, as he kind of does every now and again. And he's going to have a good weekend occasionally, but I'd probably still steer clear of Perez. I'd be quite happy to have a couple of the Ferrari boys in there as well, just to kind of mix it up, spread it up. Lando Norris kind of picks himself as well. I think he's on such a good run of form, and I know McLarens were like P19 and P20. In the practice session, but I think they're going to be a lot better than that when it comes to the actual points sharing on the sprint, the sprint and the Grand Prix. I think the McLarens are going to be up there. We saw them doing their run on the soft tyre, and Piastri, who's never even driven at this track before, went purple sector, and then aborted the lap. So for someone that's never driven on this track before to go purple is kind of interesting. But obviously they kind of aborted the lap, so that's why they're kind of back down in P19, P20. So keep the questions coming in. I'll try and answer as much as I can. But yeah, I've also got to try and bear in mind I need to pick my own team as well, as always. It adds to the stress. When I jump onto, I'll have a quick look. I'll discuss what I'm thinking for my team at the moment, and then I will go on to just answering all your questions in the chat if you bear with me for a minute. So what I'm currently thinking, I'm kind of split between two teams, and that is just cutting Perez straight out and doing a direct swap for George Russell and just leaving it like that. I do really like this team for a couple of reasons, because it keeps the triple up on McLaren, and even though, like I say, they were P19 and P20, not the most impressive, I think they're still going to be solid options this weekend. And Piastri's done well at sprints. McLaren on a great run of form. Piastri's actually a sprint winner so far this season, so I trust him, despite not having raced at this track before. And I think I want to keep that core of kind of triple McLaren going for the last two races of the season as well. So this team keeps me nicely balanced. It opens up a third free transfer going into Las Vegas, where I might want to change things around again. And then it keeps that kind of, like I said, that core of the Red Bull and Verstappen without doubling too much up on Perez. And it also gives me arguably the best budget driver of late, which is Yuki Tsunoda, which means I don't have to fiddle about changing my budget driver, because I think Tsunoda's been a great option in the last couple of races. Now AlphaTauri looks competitive. He might be able to squeak into the actual points as well, so could see a good few points for Tsunoda. So this is the first team I'm looking for, and after the practice session I'm kind of leaning maybe perhaps a little bit more strongly towards this team. The alternative to this is to cut out Piastri to get Lewis Hamilton in, and then that would enable me to just about squeeze in Alex Albon, who, again, look kind of competitive. If we look at the times, we see Albon here in P5. This is on the soft tyre. He was 3/10 off Carlos Sainz, who's also on the soft tyre, and 2/10 off Charles Leclerc on the soft tyre. So for Albon to only be two or three tenths off the Ferraris, who are the fastest, I know not everyone actually put the soft tyre on, so it's kind of hard to read into it too much. But the fact that Albon was only 2 tenths off Leclerc kind of says quite a lot to me about what Albon's doing around this track. What's Sargent up to? 8 tenths back. So yeah, seems kind of reasonable because there's generally like a half a second gap or so between Albon and Sargent. So maybe that is Albon's kind of true pace up there next to the Ferraris. In which, if it's the case, then maybe this Hamilton build looks good. But you can see George Russell here in P3 also had a really solid outing, and that time was on the medium tyre. Like I said, not everyone put the soft on. I guess they're saving them because there's a couple of different qualifying sessions coming up. But George Russell actually looked really impressive. And obviously won here last year, his one and only like actual Grand Prix victory. So yeah, it's very tempting, and I'm very torn between these two builds. So that's kind of where I'm thinking at the moment. I'll jump over to the chat and try and answer some of your questions if you bear with me for just a second. Dear. Just before coming on, I was reading to my daughter, and I feel like I've like used up all my voice already, which is not great coming on for a stream. Right, here we go. I'm just having a look through the chat. Send in as many questions as you want, and I'll try and get through what I can. Right. What we got? Ferrari or Mercedes? Chat any ideas from Phil? I've kind of already touched on that. I would personally go with Mercedes. They're kind of historically strong here. They've won 6 of the last 8 races around here, and they've looked good. Like I just said, George Russell's looking pretty good on that medium tyre, all the way up in P3. Should be really in the mix for podium competition, I think. Grant tuning in from Texas, welcome. What else we got? I've gone way too high up. Michael's in the chat. Hello, Michael. Good to see you. Perez a differential now? Yeah, kinda. So Perez's ownership. What is his ownership at the moment? We're down to 36%. So it's dropped off a little bit. I think there'll be a few zombie teams that just have him in there, so he's not going to drop much more than that. But yeah, I do think quite a big chunk of the teams in the top like 10,000 or so have probably just completely offloaded on Sergio Perez, and I know a lot of you guys out there have offloaded the Red Bull constructor as well, and like going in with the Mercedes, which I think is fine, especially if you're chasing points and you're just kind of hoping that Perez has another bad weekend and that Mercedes can outscore Red Bull. But yeah, having Perez in your team this weekend could actually be quite a nice differential. Like I say, he looked fairly on par just about with Max Verstappen in the practice session as best he can be, even though the Red Bulls didn't look especially fantastic. But we all know that the Red Bull, and particularly Max Verstappen, is going to just absolutely smash it this weekend, so I'm sure they'll be fine. So yeah, having Perez in your team could actually be a differential this week. Of course, he's been a differential in my team for recent weeks, but for all the wrong reasons. Differential for giving me -20s. What else we got here? Let's agree no Perez for all. Yeah. Thank you. Yep. Blah blah blah. What else we got? What to do if you've got the limitless chip? Yeah, I had a feeling I was going to get a lot of questions about the limitless chip. I've already kind of gone through what I'm thinking. If I had the limitless chip now, you're kind of boxed into having to use it now, I guess. I don't think it's really worth holding on for Las Vegas or Abu Dhabi. It's too much unknown. Just use it on this sprint race where you can maximize those points. And like I've already said, I think the Mercedes look really strong. So I personally would be tripling up on Mercedes on the limitless. Go with the constructor plus George and Lewis in the driver slots. Have Verstappen in there as well. Lando Norris, I think, has to be in there as well because Lando Norris is just on such great form and he looked good in the practice session despite his bad actual position, which I've already talked about. And then the final couple of positions, that is actually the final position, would be between like Sainz and Leclerc. And I think, personally, I know a lot of people I've seen on Twitter have been putting Leclerc in their teams. I personally would feel more comfortable going with Sainz. I just feel like he's, especially since the summer break, he just seems a bit more confident in the car, has had better results in general. He's had that race win in Singapore. He was actually topped by a 10th over Leclerc in FP1. So if I had to pick that kind of 5th driver slot on Limitless when I'm trying to max out my budget there, not that you can actually max out your Limitless budget because it's infinite, but there you go. That besides, I think if I had to pick between Leclerc and Sainz, I think I would actually go Sainz. But I think a lot of people also kind of disagree with me from what I gather looking at Twitter. But yeah, I think Sainz is kind of decent. Who else we got in the chat? Let's have a look. I will use Limitless. Any recommendation? Yep, we've just done that. What do you think of this team? And then you've taken another 2 attempts to put the team in. Where are we? Oh, here we go. So we got Verstappen 3 times, Hamilton 2 times, Yep, I like that. Albon, Ricardo, Sonoda, Mercedes. Well, that's pretty decent to be up there. You've got a really strong constructor. Let me just have a look at all that. Let's have a look. Now you're tempting me with different builds. Stop throwing me off. So that you've got the Red Bull, Mercedes, Albon. So you've got Ricardo in there, and then I think Hamilton is your other driver. Is that right? Yeah, so you've probably got a few million less than me, but I think that's the team that you're talking about. And with a budget with like 5 million less than what I've got, roughly, I think that team actually looks pretty decent. What could I do if I can't quite get to a McLaren if I do that, can I? No, I'm still a little bit short, so yeah, it's a bit annoying. I'm going to get Piastri in there and then kind of be left with Sonoda. So yeah, I mean, I could probably go with Piastri over Albon probably for that build, and I think that actually looks pretty nice, to be honest, but I'm not going to start faffing around changing things around because I do think that the McLarens actually just look good, and I don't see any real reason to break away from them. They still, oh, I've just completely come out of my team. I don't really see any real reason to completely break away from them. They still offer great value in that constructor slot, coming in at only 16 million compared to Mercedes, who are 26. So if you're not on limitless, I personally still think the McLarens are a great hold in the constructor slot. But regarding that team, I do think it's pretty decent. How are we feeling about Albon? Rob has atted me. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what to think, to be honest. He, like I say, he looks good, and we go back to the times. I've already said it there. He's P3, just a couple of attempts off from that soft tyre from the Ferrari. Is also on the soft tyre, so it definitely looks reasonable. Which is why I'm very torn. You know, before the practice session, I was like probably about 60-40, maybe 70-30 in favour of the Hamilton and Albon build. But now after the practice session, seeing George Russell just look really comfortable and setting good times, especially on the medium tyre. As well as McLaren and Piastri setting purple sectors before he abandoned the lap. Makes me think that maybe just sticking Russell and Piastri are actually better than Hamilton Albon build. It's very close. It's almost down to like a 50-50 to me now, which is difficult. It's a difficult pick, and I'm still not sure where I'm going yet with the deadline about 45 minutes away or so. So yeah, I'm not sure. But in general, in isolation, Albon I think is a good pick. He's got some experience around this track. He looked, like I say, good in the practice session. He's been a generally reliable driver through the season so far. He's done really well in terms of race results since the summer break as well, and pretty much since Canada, actually, since he got that upgrade, the one and only Williams got upgrade of the entire season. I don't know how Williams can only get one upgrade throughout the entire season when literally like all the other teams, like nearly every week they seem to bring something, but poor old Williams is stuck with that one upgrade. But thankfully for them, it did really like propel them forward. So yeah, ever since then, Albon's just been kind of getting double figure points pretty much every weekend. So yeah, I do think Albon in isolation is just a fine pick, to be honest, and he still offers quite good value for money. Where is he now? 11.3. He's in that kind of just above the budget drivers now, but just at the bottom range of kind of the mid-range drivers. So if your budget can stretch to him, I think it's a fine option. Like I say, I'm still very tempted by this exact build, which leaves me with just 0.1 in the bank. So yeah, I do like this build. That stat that Crofty mentioned on commentary, and I saw on Twitter earlier about whichever driver finishes on pole in Hungary goes on to win Brazil, which has been the case since 2017, minus 2020 when they didn't race here. So what's that, 2017, 18, 19, 21, 22, that's like, 6 years worth? Whatever it is, I can't do maths on the fly. But yeah, anyway, so the last few times that's happened, that someone's qualified on pole in Hungary, they've gone on to win Brazil. And who was on the Hungary pole this year? It was Lewis Hamilton. So it makes me think, maybe just to keep the stat alive, maybe Lewis Hamilton's going to win Brazil again this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if Hamilton does. So yeah, that's certainly a strong temptation for me. I'm just going to pop back to the chat for 2 seconds. Where are we? Debating on 2 teams, McLaren. This is from Bridger. McLaren and Mercedes, but drivers on team 1. Max, Sainz, Lando, Russell, Holt. Looks like a strong driver lineup. Or team 2, Max, Russell, Lando, Piastri, Albon. 1, 2. Yeah, I mean that's pretty good. I mean that's the thing. All the teams look really good when you drop Red Bull from the constructor. You can suddenly get like all the good drivers in, and suddenly your team looks great. But then you remember there's no Red Bull constructor, and you're like, maybe my team isn't that great. So I have definitely toyed with the idea of dropping Red Bull, but I just can't do it. Personally, I can't do it, and I don't think I need to do it. I'm sat in my 144 global rank. I don't feel like I need to take that risk when I just genuinely think Red Bull are going to be strong here. So if you're further back in the rankings and you're just kind of, maybe you need to make a bit of a gamble and just hope that the Red Bulls have a bad weekend and the Mercedes can kind of propel themselves forward, then yes, I think I would advocate potentially just going for the Mercedes this weekend, replacing the Red Bull constructor with the Mercedes, and then using that extra funds, 5 million or so, to upgrade a driver slot. Then yeah, I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Just 3 races left in the season. It's kind of now or never really. You can just, sit on the same sort of team as someone like myself who sat there in Red Bull, or you kind of go against the grain and hope for the best. It's kind of where I might be at in that position. In general, I think those teams both look strong, but it's probably because you don't have Red Bull as a constructor. What else we got in here? Torn on Russell plus Tsunoda or Hamilton plus Rick. I mean, if that was the option, I think I'd probably just go Hamilton Rick despite Russell's strong performance. Although Tsunoda does look pretty good. That's a tough one. If that's your decision, like I said, I think in isolation, if I was just looking like Russell and Hamilton, I think I would still want Hamilton despite the practice session. So maybe that also tells me about my own team that maybe I should just stick to the current build on screen, go with Hamilton and Albon rather than the Russell and Piastri build. But I still just kind of really like that Russell. I feel like Piastri, it's basically George versus Lewis and then Albon versus Piastri in their own little battles. Albon versus Piastri, I think I definitely prefer Piastri in isolation. I think, like I say, he's much more likely to score well in the sprint. He's more likely to score actual points in terms of the actual race. So I think in isolation, Piastri versus Albon, if you can afford it, definitely I would pick Piastri. And the next thing is kind of like Lewis versus George. Again, FP1 kind of sways me more towards George Lewis. Oh my goodness, who the hell is that? Sways me more towards George Russell than Lewis because of his performance and strength from the mediums and that. But you can't really read too much into just that one FP1 to be honest, because it's just not really enough to go on. So I don't know. I think in the Lewis versus George battle in isolation, personally, I would lean towards Lewis. So it's really hard. This is why it's such a hard decision, because it's kind of split between, I'd rather have Lewis and Piastri, and to be honest, I could almost afford it. I'm just going to show you how frustratingly close it is to being able to afford. If I had just 0.1 more, I could get Ricardo in and just have the best team, basically. I'd be so happy if I could just make this move, but I can't. I'm 0.1 short. Like I said, it's so unfair having this budget, man. Just so unfair. But yeah, so I can't do that. So which means I kind of have to decide, is Lewis over George worth dropping Piastri down to Albon? That's kind of the final decision I have to make, and that's kind of where I'm kind of leaning towards at the moment. Let's just put my guys back in there for the time being, and I'll go back to the chat and see where you're going with all your questions and things. In fact, I did put a poll on Twitter, I think yesterday, asking that exact combination, and it's come up approximately 60-40 in favour of the Albon versus Lewis build. Why don't I do a poll now? You guys can help me out and help me decide on who to pick in after FP1. We'll get an updated poll from you. You can help me out. Let's just tap this in. So we got Hamilton and Albon, and the other build is Russell and Pia. Right, please help. Please send help. Like I say, on Twitter, when I put this poll up yesterday, the results were about 60-40 in favour of Lewis. So I'll be very interested to hear your expert opinions in the chat to tell me, who you think I should pick. Yeah, please help me. Please help me out. Rob saying, I'd say no, Piastri is better than Albon. So, and do you mean that you would rather have the George and Piastri build in if you had my team, or if you had the same decision as me, would you be looking at doing this instead? Is that what you're telling me? What else we got? Thoughts about Ferrari coverage might be the deciding factor between the two. Yeah, I have a thought about Ferrari, and I did kind of consider them, if they were going to have grid penalties, but I haven't seen anything about grid penalties. In fact, let's just have a quick mooch on Twitter in case there's any random stuff on here. Okay, I've just gone to Twitter and I've just seen that the updated Rita, whatever you call him, sims for. In fact, should we get this up? Should I get this? Let's get this up on the F1 Fancy Tools. Drag this across over here. Can you guys see that? Oh. Why has that gone all funny? Let's just maximize this. Can you guys see that? You should be able to see that. So if we go to the team calculator, and then we put in the old budget. I believe my budget 136.5, I think. So let's just calculate that and see what the best option is. Interesting. So this is actually the team I'm considering with the Russell one. So except I've got Sonoda instead of Ricardo. So maybe my budget isn't. Let me just double check the budget whilst I'm too many tabs open now. And let's just cross everyone off and it'll tell me exactly what budget I've got. That'd be the easiest way to find out. Unfortunately, it doesn't just tell you. It's very annoying. Oh, wow, I've got way more budget. What am I talking about? That's 136.5 must have been last week, so it's gone up since then. Right, let's retry. So we've got, what was it, 139.3. Right, let's add it back in. This is fantastic. 139.3. Recalculate. Give me the best team. Yeah, well, there you go. The best team is literally one of the teams that I'm currently considering. Red Bull, McLaren, Verstappen of the 2 times, Russell. Oh, wait, Perez. Perez is throwing a spanner in the works. Why is Perez here? Why is not Norris? It thinks I should pick Perez over Norris. Interesting. I'm not going to do it, but it's kind of funny that I guess these calculator things don't take into account that Perez is a massive troll. They just see the numbers and think Perez is going to score well, like we've all been doing for the last few weeks. So yeah, I do think that actually I don't trust this. And this is basically the team that I'm looking at, except I've got Norris instead of Perez, which is, I guess, this team here, actually team 4. It's team 4, isn't it? Yep, this is literally team 4, so that's not bad. Is there any Hamilton builds in here? There doesn't appear to be any Hamilton builds anywhere. Maybe the calculator on here still thinks that he's too expensive. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that. Let's just reset this again. It's kind of interesting that the F1 Fantasy Tools team calculator is telling me that this is the best build of my budget. I mean, it's actually telling me that this is the best build of my budget, and that's kind of interesting. This team actually looks really good. If only Perez wasn't such a troll, it would be fantastic. I could actually just do this. But the fact that I haven't even considered, the fact that I can't wait to get Perez out of my team just means I'm not going for this. But this team does look ridiculously good when you think about it. It's just Perez is just so frustrating to own over the recent weeks. So I can't bring myself to own him. I can't do it. I cannot. If I pick him and he does another DNF, I will literally hate myself. Therefore, I have to keep Lando Norris and go with the arguably 4th best team from F1 Fantasy Tools. So yeah, let's have a quick look at the poll. See, are you serious, guys? 50%. Have you done this to troll me? 50-50. I did say it was close to a 50-50, Albon and Hamilton versus Russell and Piastri, and you've literally voted. Thank you. Someone's voted to push it over to 51%. Thank you so much for doing that. There you go, Hamilton and Albon. We'll leave it open for a couple more minutes. See if anyone else wants to vote. But yeah, tough call. What we've got, just under 40 minutes. Yeah, let's go back to the chat and see if I can help anyone else with some selections. Hamilton plus Rick and Stern, you could fit them all in if you use Mercedes. Yeah, I know. I mean, I could literally just get rid of Red Bull, but I kind of already spoken about Red Bull that I kind of don't want to get rid of them. I could go with a team like this as well. This team looks really good. Keep everyone in there. All the triple McLaren, like, I think are going to be strong. The best budget driver, the 2 best drivers, like, on the grid. The only thing is Red Bull losing the Red Bull constructor. It just makes me feel very squirmy in my seat. I just feel like I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can bring myself to do it. Maybe it's the right thing to do, but it's so hard to know. It's so hard to know when it's a sprint weekend. You don't really see the full data or anything. I know a lot of people will be going with teams like this, but like I said, I just don't feel like I need to take that risk. I don't know. Let's bring Red Bull back in and kind of sit on the other team I'm kind of looking at. It's really, really tough to know. Let's have another look at the chat. Not Perez in capital letters. Yep, thank you for reminding me that. In fact, I tweeted out the other week that meme of like, don't pick Perez with the guy writing on the chalkboard. I need to have that in my head right now. Don't pick Perez. That said, though, Perez is part of the Red Bull Racing constructor, and I have picked them. But I still think that they're fine. It's tough. It's tough to know. Back to the chat. Triple boost Perez is a big differential. If you're 2,000 overall rank, I mean, that would be a big differential. Like, there's going to be hardly anyone in the top 10,000 that's actually even going to own Sergio Perez, probably. So if you triple up on him and he actually finally has a good weekend, you could soar through the rankings. It'd be phenomenal. However, putting the triple up on Perez would be, I don't know what I'd do. I'd have to go and bury my head in a puddle of water for the rest of the weekend until it's all over. Perez will bounce exactly when you don't expect. Bounce in what way? Bounce back or bounce off the track? Who knows? That's the problem. Picking Perez is too unreliable. Just don't know what's going on. And now you guys are talking me out of picking Red Bull constructor. Now suddenly like Mercedes might be the best pick, but no. I think Max Verstappen's too strong that I need to just maximise the Max Verstappen points. But it does look good, doesn't it? It does look good having the triple up there. The team looks really good. But I think we're going to be a bit more sensible. Stick with the Red Bull. Going into the stream, I had my 2 plans in mind. I was kind of set on one of those 2 plans. I think it's probably not a great idea to start changing things around, because then I go to the deadline, come off the stream, and then I'll be like, did I just get like pressured into changing my team, and now I'm not going to be happy with it? I don't know. So this is the team, or this is the team. And I will continue to debate for another probably 20-25 minutes before I lock it in, about 10-15 minutes before deadline, I would say. I don't like leaving it too late, but I like to keep thinking about it as much as I can. Check Twitter for any news, if there's any problems with any cars and that sort of thing. And then if there's if anyone catches any news of anything kind of going on Twitter, then please let me know in the chat. There's also, no one here, as far as I can see, has mentioned Fernando Alonso. I think Fernando Alonso actually did pretty well, didn't he? Where is he in here? Oh, maybe not as well as for 11th. He looked quite decent on the early part of the practice session, but yeah, Aston Martin maybe just too far off. They're just a kind of a no-go. And Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso all season were like, he's underpriced, you're ruining the game, he's too cheap. And now it's like, none of us are picking Fernando Alonso. It's just like, too expensive, he keeps DNFing. I do think he'll be quite decent around here though. Yogesh Rupani says, why Hamilton? Why Hamilton? Because it's Lewis Hamilton and it's Brazil and it's Mercedes who are good around here, and honorary citizen and everything. He should be doing well. He's honorary citizen. They should give him an honorary F1 victory and honorary F1 fantasy team boost, please. I just think Hamilton's a great pick. However, is he a great enough pick for me to justify dropping Piastri, who, like I say, let's look at it. Let's jump ahead another hour or two's time and look at it from, imagine we've jumped into the future and we're looking back. What do we expect to see from the sprint? Looking ahead in 24 hours time, let's say, ahead of the sprint. So the sprint's finished. It's this time tomorrow, whatever. The sprint's just finished. Who would we expect to be on, like, between 5 to 10 points? Piastri, definitely. Albon, I would expect to be probably on 0 points. I don't imagine him getting any points, or maybe like 1 or 2 overtakes or something. Piastri, I'd imagine quite comfortably should be in like maybe the 5 to 10 point mark. The sprint isn't actually, when you think about it, isn't actually worth that many points. Think about it, and it's more just like a DNF trouble basically. But then also thinking ahead, who's going to score more points out of Hamilton and George Russell? And I honestly can't answer that question. So maybe for that exact reason, because before FP1 and everything, and just in general, I would imagine Lewis would score more. But will he score more than George than what Piastri is going to score more than Albon? I don't know. I mean, obviously he would if he actually won the race and George came like 4th or 5th or something. Then it's obviously should have picked Hamilton. But is it worth it? Do I just go for the more balanced lineup? I don't know. Let's pop it back to these boys, because that's what I'm kind of toying between. Michael's popped up there. Would you risk Hamilton as the 2 times if you're trying to break out the 6K global? So I'm assuming that's like not using the 3 times on Verstappen, because I think if you're using the 3 times on Verstappen, it's just an absolute given. I would probably put the 2 times on Lewis Hamilton. That's what I did back in Kota. Sorry for the flashbacks again, but yep. I put the 2 times on Hamilton and Kota, DQ, pain. To answer this question, so you are, what are you, about 6, I guess that means you're about 6,000 global ranked. Depends what your goal is, really. Depends what your goal is. If you're trying to like squeeze your way into like the top 1,000 or something, then like I said, with only 3 races left, this is the last race weekend, the last deadline where like big point. Oh, you are on limitless. Okay, yeah, so definitely not the 3 times. Oh well, limitless as well. Well, that could be a massive differential, like going really crazy on Lewis Hamilton. He is a safe pick, isn't he? I think if we ran, I kind of said this on my team selection video earlier in the week. If we did this race weekend like 10 times with this current conditions and the current cars and the current drivers, we did this race 10 times. I think in general, Max Verstappen would come out on top of Lewis Hamilton. This is a bit of a rough estimate, I guess, whatever, because it's not actually going to happen. But I would say Max Verstappen probably win this race like 8 times out of 10 or something. And there'll be a couple of occasions where Hamilton would edge it out somehow, strategy call, some DNF from Verstappen randomly. I think in general, Max Verstappen is definitely just going to score more points and is a safer pick. So it's going against that knowledge to you're basically rolling the dice to get that 2 out of 10 times sort of thing that Hamilton's going to do it. It completely depends on how you want to play it, Michael, as to how much do you want to gamble for it. Because that's exactly what this is. Like the whole game of fantasy is a big gambling thing, basically. We're all addicted at the end of the day. So it kind of depends how much do you want to gamble on Lewis beating Verstappen this weekend. And I think in general the odds are against Lewis from doing that. But if you're that desperate that you kind of want to make that potential gain, then do it. But just bear in mind that if Max kind of, as we would probably expect, outscore Hamilton this weekend, then you'll probably expect maybe a slight rank drop, if anything, or at least not a climb as high as you would have wanted. So yeah, it completely depends on what you want to do, how much you want to gamble it, really. If it was me in that position, if I was currently ranked 6k on Limitless, I feel like the Limitless is probably already quite a massive differential for you. As long as the Mercedes or whoever you're picking in your Limitless team can outscore the McLarens, like look at my team, it's full of McLarens. You're going to make big gains on me as long as that happens. So do you also need to put the 2 times on Lewis to kind of jump even further ahead? I don't know. I don't know if you need to do it. I'm just not really sure if it's the gamble that you need to take. It completely depends on how much of a risk you want to take. So that was a very, very long-winded answer. I'm sorry for. I think the ultimate answer is it depends on how much you want to gamble. If you want to gamble, you want to roll those dice, throw all your chips in the middle, then put it on Lewis. Otherwise, keep it safe, put it on Max. What else have we got in here? Zhou versus Ricciardo. That's an interesting one. Quite a difference in budget as well. So I guess you're kind of just ignoring all the other budget drivers in that price range. If you had to pick between Zhou and Ricciardo, Zhou's really been off at the last few races, really, hasn't he? He's just not been as impressive, although he has been the overtake king up until recently, and there should be quite a few overtakes here in Brazil, so potentially. But at the same time, Ricciardo's been in the AlphaTauri, which is like nicely upgraded at the moment and competing for those fringe points. So, though I will say I'm not going to be able to pull it up right here, right now. But I saw on Twitter yesterday, I think, Ricciardo's form around Interlagos, and it's really not very good. If you want to go, I haven't got time to do it right now because it's too fiddly searching for stuff whilst I'm streaming to all you guys. But if you've got time for a minute, go and look at Daniel Ricciardo's record around Interlagos. It's not especially great. So for that reason, if you've got the budget, then maybe Guan Yu Zhou might be a better option. What do you think about Red Bull, Zhou, or Tsunoda, or Mercedes and Albon? Okay, so these questions relating to Red Bull constructor versus Mercedes, I feel like I kind of answering those questions by having the Red Bull constructor currently on my team. I could very easily, like I said, or I could quite easily just drop the Red Bull to bring in, like, go kind of hard on Mercedes. This kind of helps me negate the Limitless gain when people are piling on Mercedes. It would help me negate that. But I just can't. I can't pull myself away from the Red Bull constructor, whether it's right or wrong. I don't know, but I think I just want to keep the Red Bull constructor personally. There's lots of people that seem to be shipping them off, and it could wait. It's that time of the season where people are starting to make gambles, and maybe that's the right time to do it. Still have autopilot. Seems like it won't hurt to use it this sprint for sure. Yeah, I think for sure could be a good time to use it. Past that, you've literally got Abu Dhabi, where Max is probably going to win quite easily, and then Las Vegas, which is a bit of unknown, but Las Vegas looks like a track that, it's just full of straights. We know Red Bull's good in a straight. Just to simplify things very, very much so, Max Verstappen's probably going to win Las Vegas. So yeah, autopilot, when, it's a sprint weekend, anything can happen. Max could DNF the sprint and then still win the Grand Prix, but because of that DNF in the sprint, he's got that -20 and etc. And then suddenly he's not, suddenly he's outscored by a Norris or a Hamilton or whatever. So yeah, I think if you've got autopilot this weekend, for sure, it seems like a great opportunity to use it. Like I said, extra jeopardy of the sprint race, extra chance of DNFing for Max Verstappen. Maybe, Max and Lando haven't DNF'd at all this season. Maybe now's the time that they're finally going to DNF. I hope not, because they're in my team. But if it does happen, then, autopilot could save you there. A nice little safety belt. Might have missed this. Joined the stream late, but what about Ferrari post FP1? Yeah, like I say, if we quickly flick back, you can see Ferrari's both on top here, but they did put the soft tyre on. A lot of other teams, I think the Red Bull and also the Mercedes, didn't put the soft tyre on. The McLarens did put the soft tyre on, but then aborted right at the end, which is why they're all the way down the bottom. I just noticed Sergio Perez all the way down here in 18th and Verstappen in 16th. So they're obviously not doing soft tyre runs, these guys. So I personally think, and the fact that Albon is only a couple of tenths off the Ferraris makes me think. I mean, it's hard to tell from practice session. You don't know fuel loads and that sort of thing, engine modes or whatever, tweaks of setup post FP1. So, but the fact that Albon in a Williams is only a couple of tenths off the Ferraris makes me think. And and George Russell was only a tenth off, and just a couple of hundredths off Leclerc. And Russell was on the mediums, and these guys up top here were on the soft. That tells me that the Mercedes are surely just stronger. If you want to keep it, break it down to make it nice and simple. If you want to put it like that. What else we got in here? My second team going, I try 3. Okay, good luck with that. Autopilot means Hamilton's option, right? Yeah, for sure. If you're using autopilot, I think Hamilton definitely is a good option. I mean, I could quite happily use autopilot this team as well. I could see Verstappen, Lando, or George potentially even outscoring each other, sort of thing. I'm just sort of flicking back and forth between these two team builds. This team on screen right now is actually the team I had for Cota. And if I just left it the same, I would have been about 60 points up in Mexico if I hadn't brought back Perez. So this is a team I'm kind of looking to bring back. I thought it was strong in Cota. It was strong until the disqualification for Lewis. It would have also been very strong, scoring over 300 points in Mexico. So I think this team just in general is very strong. I just really don't know. That's the thing. That's what makes fantasy fun and also very difficult, and also kind of difficult to stomach when it goes wrong, because these decisions are such fine margins. In fact, let's end this poll as it is. So the final scores of the poll, 53% in favour of the Hamilton Albon, but that's how close it is. It's literally so close to 50-50. In your minds, it's pretty much a 50-50 in my mind. And, if I go this Hamilton Albon build in about 20 minutes when 20 minutes until qualifying starts. I need to lock in my team in a minute. In about 20 minutes, or an hour or so, when we're into qualifying, I'm either going to be thinking, oh, come on Lewis, if I've got this team, or I'm going to be thinking, oh, come on George, and I'm either going to, I don't know, it's hard to, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Basically, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to pick. I don't know what to do. I thought this was going to be easy. Honestly, earlier on, took my dog out for a walk this afternoon. I was having to think about it, and I was thinking, I feel pretty comfortable. I feel pretty comfortable going with the Lewis Albon build. But now the more I think about it, and the more I think that this is just a good team structure, gives me an extra transfer going into Las Vegas, gives me the triple up in McLaren, who I think are going to be good, gives me some Mercedes coverage. It's this team looks good. George Russell looked good in the FP1. But do I just put it back to, like I say, this team, which has scored extremely well over the past couple of races? Just go over the Lewis Albon build. It's so close to 50-50, I just don't know what to think. Let's answer a few more questions, and I need to actually make a decision on my team. So yeah, I'll go back to the chat for a few minutes. If anyone's got any more questions or team dilemmas, chip usage questions, now is the time to put them in the chat, because you've got my attention for the next 5 minutes or so. And then I'm going to be really going through, churning those cogs, grinding the cogs together in my brain as to exactly what team I'm going to settle on. So yeah, ask questions if you've got them now. I'll do my best to answer them over the next few minutes, and then I'm going to be locked in my team. It's full focus after 5 minutes time. Go. Answer your question. I'll answer your questions. What we got? Nico or Ricardo as budget driver? Ricardo. I'm going to try and do some quick fire stuff because they're all coming in now. Ricardo over Nico for me. Verstappen, Russell, Norris, Piastri, Ricardo, Red Bull, McLaren, Christian. That team looks really good. In fact, that is literally the team that I'm considering, except I got Tsunoda instead of... Oh, the fact that I think that team looks really good maybe tells me that this team is the one to go for. Who knows? I just don't know. It's so hard. What team do you think of Limitless? Double up on Ferrari or just settle for Sainz? Personally, if I was Limitless right now, I would only have Sainz. I wouldn't double up on them. I would have Red Bull and Mercedes as my constructors, Verstappen and Hamilton and Russell, and Norris and Sainz. That would be my Limitless team. Best team for Limitless. Yeah, lots of Limitless questions coming in. That I just told you my best team. I'll say it one more time for all the Limitless people that are asking me questions. If I was Limitless right now, this is what I pick: Red Bull, Mercedes as my constructor, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, Lando Norris, and Carlos Sainz as my drivers. Currently 28 worldwide. Well done, Ben. Not quite the budget as you. Not sure between going Ferrari and Hamilton or Mercedes. Oh, so you're just completely off Red Bull as well, Ben, potentially. Mercedes, Sainz, Leclerc. I think I've decided all the way through the stream so far. I think, Ben, that Mercedes look a little bit stronger than Ferrari. So I personally kind of want to get that nice constructor, safety with the Mercedes, and if your budget allows, and go Mercedes and Sainz rather than Ferrari and Hamilton. Should I try Mercedes instead of Red Bull or Hamilton 2 times over Verstappen? Completely team dependent. It's rank dependent. It's how much you want to gamble dependent. I can't answer that question. It is a big gamble. I personally am playing it safe, putting the 2 times on Max Verstappen. No news on any grid penalties, so I suppose none. Thank you, Michael, for the update. Very much appreciated, as it's hard for me to keep track of what's going on Twitter whilst this is going on. Let's just have a quick look at Twitter whilst you're talking about it. Yeah, nothing going on there. See if there's any news on anything. Yeah, there's been a couple of punches I've just seen on Twitter. Yeah, there's a couple of punches. Alonso had a puncher. I think Hamilton had a puncher. That makes me a bit concerned. Maybe no negative chip users might be in for a treat this weekend. If you still got no negative, if you think there's going to be a bunch of punches. No further action between Norris and Hulkenberg. I've just seen. Interesting. Yeah, looks like nothing really. Nothing really going on there. The fact that Red Bull did not even do a soft tyre run is kind of interesting, and it might mean that they don't qualify particularly well. It might mean like Max Verstappen qualifies P3, P4, P5 or something random, and that means positions gained and overtakes. So again, that makes kind of the Red Bull constructor kind of appealing to me. Right, last couple of minutes of me searching through the chat, and then I'm going to kind of zone in, make my decision. Make sure I'm happy with my decision, because we've already got just over 15 minutes until the deadline. So yeah, let me have a quick look at the chat. Why Sainz over Leclerc? Just because I trust him a bit more. He's done well in general over the last few races. I think, pretty much the last half of the season, I think Sainz has been slightly outperforming Leclerc, and I just feel kind of a bit more comfortable with him. He was, slightly a tenth quicker in FP1. Not that it means a lot. But yeah, I just think that Sainz, for me, I just feel personally a little bit more comfortable having him in my team than Leclerc. Leclerc is a little bit of a, qualify high and then drop back a little bit. Sainz seems to kind of be able to maintain his position a bit better. What else we got? Zhou versus Tsunoda. If you asked me that question, Tom G, a few weeks ago, I would have said Zhou, but you can't argue with Tsunoda's outpouring of points over the last couple of weeks. So Tsunoda at the moment, particularly with the AlphaTauri looking strong after a couple of upgrades. Sainz or Perez? Oh, well, you know the answer to that if you've been listening to me so far. I think Sainz, because I don't trust Perez. I think, as long as Perez doesn't DNF, he's probably going to score well, but I can't in good conscience put him back in my team at the moment. Russell 3 times boost. Personally, I wouldn't do that. If I've got the 3 times, I would just put on Max Verstappen. Keep it simple. He's won 16 races this season. Why would you go against someone with that form? Just doesn't seem like you need to. You don't need to be differential the 3 times. Just having the 3 times chip is a big differential already. So, yeah. And then, just to prove a point, before I used the 3 times going into the Kota weekend, I was ranked about 800 or 900. I used the 3 times on Max Verstappen that weekend, and the 2 times on Hamilton. And even with the Hamilton disqualification, it scored me -8 using the times too. Because I had the 3 times on Max Verstappen, it still shot me up about 700 places into the. I was positioned 123rd. So just having the 3 times is a great differential. We don't need to be clever about it. Just put on Max Verstappen. Right, last couple of questions. Jesus or Nketiah? Suddenly we're on to FPL, are we, I guess? Isn't Jesus or Jesus injured? So Nketiah, I guess. Sainz is the most consistent pick. More likely to DNF Russell or Leclerc. I mean, Russell's had a few DNFs this year, which does make me a bit nervous putting him in there. But at the same time, Leclerc, I don't think either of them are that likely to DNF, to be honest. It'd be just purely unlucky if they did. Bridges rolling with Max, Hamilton, Norris, Piastri, Hulkenberg, McLaren, Mercedes. This is 19 global. Very nice, very nice. I'm coming for your rank. Yeah, you go for Mercedes. I'll go for Red Bull, and then when Max and Perez are like top of the podium, I'll take your number 19, and you can come down and join me in the hundreds. No, I don't know. It's bold. It's certainly bold. I've kind of already expressed my thoughts on the whole constructor thing. I am sticking with the Red Bull constructor, but I don't think it's wrong. I do not think it's wrong to put Mercedes in. I just personally prefer the Red Bull. Rate my limitless team from Jake: Verstappen, Russell, Norris, Hamilton, Perez. Ooh, Perez makes me nervous, but you know, could do well. Red Bull, Mercedes looks good. Yeah, the only real change, I would probably have Sainz instead of Perez, but that's just because I'm super scared of Perez. And if you've got the guts to put Perez in, then good luck with that. It could pay off. Oh wow, Krishanu has donated $1.99. Thank you very much. Have a heart. Norris, Piastri, Ricciardo, Verstappen, Albon, Red Bull, Mercedes. Yeah, it looks good. It certainly looks good. The Mercedes as a constructor looks strong. You know, that double up looks strong. I personally am still sticking with the McLarens because I think the McLarens can still be very competitive at the sharp end of the grid. But yeah, if you think the Mercedes is going to be that strong, which they do look good to be fair, then this certainly could be a good pick. You still got kind of that core McLaren in the driver slots of Norris and Piastri, so you're kind of already feeling as well that the McLarens look strong there. So you're kind of gone opposite here. So instead of having George and McLaren, you'd have like Mercedes and then like a Piastri or something in there. Right, I've gone over my 5 minutes, so I think I need to actually pick my team. Might as well go bold and try and win the whole thing rather than finish in the top 1,000. Fair enough, Carl. That is fair enough. Try and win the whole thing. That's it. Kind of depends how you want to get out of it. You know, if it pays off, you could certainly be in the top 10, top 5. Who knows? If it doesn't pay off, you might drop down a couple of hundred places. It's not the end of the world, is it? Still gonna have a good rank. So, you know, I guess maybe that's good reason to go for it. So, I need to make a decision. I've got to make my decision because I've got just over 10 minutes until the deadline. It's either this team on screen. Do I triple up with the McLarens with George Russell? Or do I go with the team which I've kind of been slightly leaning towards so far this week with Lewis and Alex? I just think, in general, in terms of scoring actual points, the combination, you know, like not fantasy points, but just actual like F1 points, getting top 8 in the sprint and top 10 in the race. I think the combination of George and Piastri are probably going to outscore Lewis and Alex. If I go with this build with Lewis, I'm basically gambling on the fact that Lewis is going to outscore George by enough to justify dropping Piastri, who I think is going to be really strong around here. That said, Piastri on his first race around here, all it takes is one silly mistake going through that tight middle bit part of the track on lap 1 come tomorrow or on Sunday during the race, and he gets tagged or whatever and spins out. There's just my imagination running away with itself a little bit here, but yeah, does just Lewis justify kind of dropping out Piastri in a way? And I do think Piastri is good, but at the same time, Alex is kind of a good substitute. So it's just such a hard decision. I'm going to have a quick look at the chat, see if anyone's actually helping me, or you're just going to watch me suffer whilst I decide. No, all making me suffer, basically. Would you use the autopilot this weekend if you had it? Yes, use the autopilot. I think it's sensible. Right, I need to make a decision. I've got 10 minutes. It is basically a 50-50. So I feel like kind of regardless, I'm going to be happy with my decision anyway, because I've kind of been umming and ahhing about this all weekend. Using this team uses up 2 transfers instead of just 1 transfer, which means it kind of restricts me slightly going into Las Vegas if I want to make more than 2 changes. I don't know what 2 changes I want to make. Maybe going in on Ferraris if the Ferraris look good around Las Vegas, for example. Might want that extra third sub for free. This is just me literally thinking out loud at the moment. So we've got George Russell, Piastri. I'm definitely happy with this call. I'm happy with the 2 guys at the top. They're not going anywhere. Lando and Max. Red Bull, McLaren also not going anywhere, even though I've kind of dabbled with the idea of dropping Red Bull down to Mercedes. That's just not going to happen. I've decided on that. I've been pretty strong on that most of the week, that I kind of decided on keeping Red Bull. I just think they're strong. I just think they're strong and they'll be fine. So yeah, it's literally George and Oscar. George, Oscar, and they were 4th best in the whole Rita simulation. There was no Hamilton build anywhere to be seen. But then Hamilton Albon combo has done really well the last couple of weeks, and it would have done phenomenally well around COTA if it wasn't for the disqualification. Certainly did well around Mexico. Albon did well, scored quite well. I can't remember exactly how many points he got. 13 points, yeah, it's pretty reasonable. You know, last sprint race he scored 23. Piastri obviously had that DNF in COTA. Ended up with minus 20, so not the greatest last time out on a sprint for Oscar. But then you go back to Qatar, which is the other sprint, scored a really whopping 56 points. Sprint for that, again DNF. So there's a couple of DNFs floating around in Oscar's history in terms of the sprint weekends. Austria did kind of fine. And the other one went back when the McLaren was unupgraded with 8 points. Do I go with the balance pick? And there's basically balance versus gambling on Hamilton. It seems very unexciting, but am I actually now leaning more towards going George and Oscar? Just doesn't. I don't know. Let's just throw it back again. This is kind of what I do when I'm not streaming, like right before the deadline. This is me just kind of letting my thoughts out. Kind of. I guess another benefit of this team with Lewis and Alex is that I've only got 0.1 in the bank, so this does almost completely maximise my budget. And if this team does do well, not only does it do well and I score points, but it means that a lot of other people won't be able to afford this exact team, and therefore I'll kind of propel myself forward ahead of people with lower budgets. So that's also kind of a bit of a temptation. And this team is full of trustworthy. In my team selection video, I said about how this team is full of like trustworthy drivers. Alex, I trust. Lewis, I trust. I mean, I do trust Oscar, but it is still his first race around Brazil. I kind of trust George, but he does make me a bit nervous. He's had a couple of iffy moments this season. It's a tough one. And obviously FP1 was telling me that George was looking really strong. Lewis maybe a slightly different direction in terms of setup. Have they corrected that in time? Are they going to mess up with his blooming plank thing and get him disqualified again? That'd be a nightmare. Alex looked good. A couple of attempts off on the soft tyres from the Ferraris on the soft tyres. Kind of tells a bit of a story, even though you can't read too much into it. Qualifying has been delayed by 15 minutes. I don't think, okay, if that's the case, fine, but I don't think that changes the actual deadline, which is 6 minutes from here. Let me just upload the chat because I've already missed. 60% rain for qualifying. Interesting. 2 times on Lando or Russell. I mean, 2 times on Verstappen. If you're 3 times in Verstappen, I would probably 2 times on Russell, no Lando. Oh, I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't need to think about that because I need to think about my own team. Autopilot, Hamilton, Albon. Yeah. Ooh, tough one. Piastri, George. How much time have I got? 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. This does leave it quite nicely open. I'm just going to quickly check Twitter for last minute news. I suppose nothing. Qualifying has been delayed by 15 minutes. Yeah, they're sweeping the track after punches and things. It's like, why haven't they done that already? Why have they waited until right before the deadline, the qualifying starts, to suddenly decide they need to sweep the track? Don't know. Anyway, I think I'm going to go with the team I was talking about in terms of trust. I spoke a lot about trust in the drivers in my team selection video earlier this week, and I just feel I slightly more trust Lewis and Alex, even though I think I think as a combination, George and Oscar have a better chance of getting into the points. I think Lewis and Alex I just trust, and I said about not picking drivers that I think are necessarily going to maximise the points, which seems counterintuitive in fantasy. But I want to pick drivers that are more just kind of I trust. I trust Lewis. I trust Alex. And if Piastri does well, I still got him as a constructor. So I'm kind of just gambling on Lewis outscoring George in a way, and Alex to just kind of chug along and hopefully get another double figure amount of points. So yeah, I think I'm going to lock this team in. I've kind of run out of time. I've got 4 minutes left, so I need to do it now. I can't just go on all night, and RM, because it is pretty much a 50-50 decision. And I think I've kind of make my bed and lie in it now. Come on, Lewis Hamilton. Let's keep that stat going of pole on Hungary equals a Brazil win. I'll take that nicely if Lewis can do well. So I think we're going to skip ahead and hit continue here. We're going to say goodbye to Sergio Perez and goodbye for now to Oscar Piastri, but you're still in my team technically because of the constructor, so you haven't gone far. And we're going to welcome in Lewis and Albon. Just going to double check I haven't missed anything stupid. It does mean I use up my 2 subs, which does mean I'm slightly more restricted going to Las Vegas, but I can't imagine I'm going to change too much going to Las Vegas anyway. And yeah, I think we're going to go for it. 0 points, 2 free transfers, 0.1 in the bank, maximise that budget as best I can, and we're going to bring them in. And there we go. That's my team. We're locked in. Don't have any chips to use, so don't have to worry about any of that. The 2 times is sat on Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton. Let's go Brazil. Let's do it. I'm happy. I'm happy with my decision. To be honest, I think I would have been kind of happy anyway if I'd gone with the Piastri George build. I'd be like, yep, I'm happy. Come on, George. I'd be saying the same thing. And honestly, I'm completely happy. Like I say, it was very much a 50-50. I've gone with the Lewis Alex build, and let's just hope and pray. I wish good luck to everyone, because I think we're a couple of minutes away from the deadline. This is your 2-minute warning to lock in your teams, because I assume they're not going to change the deadline. It's still showing, 2 minutes is showing on my screen here. So that is my team locked in. Lots of and lots of thought through the week. Ultimately gone back to the team I had in COTA pre-Mexico, and I think it's looking pretty solid. I like the team. I'm happy with it. So I'm going to spend the last 2 minutes just saying, answering last couple of minute questions in the chat. Ferrari are dark horses. I mean, they're dark horses everywhere, but yeah, pun intended. Ferrari, they could be fine. I think they're probably competitive, etc. They'll be in the top 4, but past that, I don't know enough about whether they're actually going to do well. So I'm not going for any Ferrari assets. What else we got? Thank you, that's what I have. I feel better about it now. We're in this together, Jason. We're in this together. Locking in the team. Very nice. Kunal Gaglani. Oh, you were one of the guys that tweeted me. I put you on. I think I put you in the violin section on my team selection video. Welcome to the chat here on the live stream. Looks great. Thank you very much for that. Race strategy plaguing Ferrari. Yeah, too right. Russell versus Piastri. I mean, that's quite a budget difference. That's like 6 million difference in budgets. That's quite an interesting thing that you're thinking about that. Probably Russell. I think Russell's probably just slightly edges it for me on this one. Already have Red Bull plus Mercedes. I mean, again, it's hard to know about seeing your exact team. I personally, if I had the budget between Russell and Piastri, would pick George Russell. All in on Ferrari for Feg 35. We're into the last races. Time to take risks. Could certainly pay off, and I do think Ferrari could be competitive around Las Vegas as well. She might be set up nicely for Las Vegas. We'll see. But that's it from me, because we're 1 minute to the deadline. We've got to make sure we lock it in and go watch qualifying. 2 more deadlines to go. There was some rumours about Abu Dhabi being cancelled. I think that's all been rubbish now. So we do have 2 more deadlines. A couple of weeks until Las Vegas. So I'll be back in a week or so for some Las Vegas team selection stuff. So make sure you subscribe for that. And yeah, we'll see. Currently ranked 144 in the world. Can Max, Lando, Lewis, Alex and Yuki, with the 2 Red Bull and McLaren constructors, carry me forward into the top 100? Or is it going to be more DNF and disqualification pain? I don't know, but I'll be sort of there or thereabouts on Twitter if you want to tweet me, etc. I'm there to chat to if you want to, or comment on my videos. You can chat to me through that if you really want to. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for tuning in to this stream. I expect everyone's kind of leaving now to go watch qualifying. So I just want to say a big thank you for everyone that's joined. Thank you for everyone that's contributed to the chat and everything. And yeah, good luck this weekend, because this is a big crunch weekend. If you can get through this weekend fairly unscathed, you should get a nice rank boost. So yeah, good luck to everyone. And like I say, I'll catch you ahead of Las Vegas. Woohoo! That's going to be exciting. So yeah, thanks very much for everyone. I'm just going to end the stream now. So go enjoy qualifying. Bye for now. Have a nice weekend.